Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. 30 NBA teams are down to 2. We've been through 3 rounds of the NBA playoffs, had some insane moments, a lot of blowouts alongside the way, but all in all, we are here at the NBA Finals, Celtics versus Warriors, the two best teams in the league going against each other, and it's a matchup that I'm really excited about. I've seen some people say, oh, I wish it was this team, I wish it was that team, this team's gonna sweep the other team, whatever. Some people are kind of concerned, but for me personally, I think this is an incredible finals matchup. I think these two teams match up really well against each other, they counter a lot of each other's strengths, and I think this is a series that's going to go way into June, ultimately going 6 or 7 games before we crown a champion at potentially the last day of the season. I think it's going to be really good. And because of that, I want to talk about it, as I always do on this channel. Now, we do have to unfortunately wait 3 days before game 1, but I'm impatient, so I want to talk about it now. So I'm probably dropping this video the day I'm recording it on Monday after game 7 of Celtics versus Heat. So if there are some like injuries or something that pop up that I don't know about, I'm sorry, I'm going to record this video now because I'm excited. Just letting you know in case you watch it a few days later or you come back after the finals and you want to laugh at me because I got something wrong, just keep that in mind for me. But let's talk about these NBA finals. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy. We're going to go ahead and get into it. I organized it in 5 different like questions or kind of just storylines that I want to look at this series through the lens of. We're going to start off by talking about the experience gap in these finals. Of course, the Golden State Warriors have now been to 6 finals in 8 seasons, and while a lot of the pieces have shifted over the course of those runs, they've kept together this main core group of guys. Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iguodala has been there for a lot of them as well. And so on this roster, amongst all of those guys, they have 123 combined games of finals experience, which is a absolute ton. You've also got Steve Kerr, who's of course coached a lot of finals himself, played in them in the past. We know this Warriors team is really experienced. That's part of the reason why they made it through this playoff run, is that they've been there and done this before. They know how the playoffs work. They know what they need to do to get things done when it comes down to those close, grinded out type of playoff games. And so that definitely gives them an advantage heading into the finals, especially when we look at the Celtics side of things, where amongst the entire roster, they have a combined 0 games of finals experience on that roster. That's a huge difference. I don't think I need to tell you that. 123 to 0, it's a big gap. And while that is kind of concerning potentially if you look at it, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, because while the Celtics don't have finals experience, they've been through these deep playoff runs before. Of course, the NBA Finals are their own stage. Chris Paul last year talked about how different it was to play in a finals for the first time. So of course it is different, but the Celtics have been here in these big moments for the last like 4 or 5 years. Jason Tatum in his rookie season alongside Jaylen Brown in his sophomore year took LeBron James, one of the greatest players of all time, to 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. They've been to multiple conference finals. They were in one against the Heat themselves before this, now going through another one. Al Horford has played, up until yesterday, he played the most playoff games in NBA history without making an NBA Finals, which just goes to show both how long he's been in this league, but also the amount of high-stakes playoff games that he has played in. Ime Udoka has coached in some high-leverage situations before on other staffs, so it's not like this team is super inexperienced. They've been to a lot of big moments. While they may not be NBA Finals moments, they're big moments nonetheless. So I'm not super concerned about that gap, but ultimately it is something that we have to take into account. The second thing I want to talk about is how are the Warriors going to deal with the Celtics size? The Celtics, of course, a lot of times run that double big lineup of Al Horford and Robert Williams. And while the Golden State Warriors have had to face off against some size in the playoffs, of course, Nikola Jokic in the first round, the Grizzlies will run some bigger guys as well. They haven't had to face anything like this, because while Nikola Jokic is an incredible big, he's not playing against another huge guy. He also did not have a lot of help in general and isn't really necessarily a defensive force down low. The Celtics have 2 really great defenders in Horford and Robert Williams that can play down low. They're hyper athletic. They're guys that can really give you problems. Against the Memphis Grizzlies, Steven Adams really wasn't able to play because he was just kind of too slow. He really couldn't keep up with the Golden State Warriors, their ability to run a high level motion offense. But the Celtics, that's not necessarily a problem. Al Horford and Robert Williams have both shown great ability to keep up with guys on the perimeter, contest shots at the worst, and it's things that you're going to have to live with. The Celtics have been a great defense playing those two bigs, and the Warriors aren't really going to be able to exploit it like they've exploited other bigs in the past few rounds. They're going to have to come up with something new, and while I believe the Warriors can absolutely do that, it is something they have to take into account on offense when trying to score, and defensively. How do they match up? Draymond Green can play really big, and Kevon Looney can as well, but when you've got the hyper athleticism of Robert Williams catching lobs, Al Horford spacing the floor, who guards him, especially if you want Draymond Green on Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown at sometimes, who guards those guys on the perimeter, who guards them down low. Al Horford is going to back you down if you put a smaller guy on him, and if you try to double, he's good enough to make the pass out to one of the open shooters that the Celtics have a plethora of. So you've got to kind of figure out that scenario. I think the Celtics size really might be the key to this matchup. How those two bigs play, how they navigate the Warriors' motion offense, how they play on defense. I think it's going to tell a lot about the way this series goes pretty early on, how those two guys are playing. And that leads me right into my third point. The Celtics defense versus the Warriors offense is going to clearly be the key to this series. The Celtics, since that weird section of January where they were 20-21, they've been the best offense in the NBA, period. They've been incredible. They run this great, pretty much switch everything offense. They've got not a single weak link on this team. They've got some smaller guys like a Peyton Pritchard, but he doesn't really even play that many minutes. Amongst their starting five, you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, Al Horford, and you've also got Derek White and Grant Williams off the bench, who are all really good defenders. So you have 7 guys there who can all switch on anything. They can play great defense. They've got great help defense. If the Warriors try to exploit mismatches, which they're not great at hunting them, and it will be harder to hunt them when you've got the Celtics who switch everything. You can't really hunt mismatches, do dribble handoffs as effectively if the Celtics are switching everything, and every player that switches is effective at guarding pretty much everyone on the other team. So this Celtics defense, how they step up, how the Warriors navigate against this Celtics defense is really going to be the key to this thing. If the Warriors can't get open shots, the Celtics are going to take this one pretty early. They're going to really start to run away with some of these games. The Warriors have to find a way to get some open looks, get Curry going, and they're going to be fine, I'm sure, getting a lot of open shots, but they can't continue to have to fight through great defense, physicality, which the Celtics play a plethora of. We've seen it all playoff run. They're really good at being physical, making the other team work for buckets. And so the Celtics defense are going to have to set the tone early, really make the Warriors work for things, continue to use their switching format that they've used for so long. And if the Warriors start to exploit things, I think Ime Udoka has clearly shown that he can make adjustments and figure things out on the fly like he's done all playoffs. Number 4 is kind of on the opposite side of things. How are the Warriors going to stop Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have had incredible moments over the course of these playoffs. Tatum, of course, winning Eastern Conference Finals MVP. Jaylen Brown dropped 40 against the Miami Heat in this series. They've both had these great games. How are the Warriors going to keep up with them? Who do they throw at who? And I think they've got a lot of great players to throw at them. Of course, they've got Draymond Green, a past Defensive Player of the Year. He's a guy that I think could really get a lot of matchups against Jason Tatum. I think he's probably going to be his primary defender for a lot of this series. But they've also got Andrew Wiggins, who did a phenomenal job guarding Luka Doncic, who's a guard, a little bit like quicker. Of course, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have a bit more length, but Wiggins has the tools to really deal with any 2, 3, or 4. He's a guy who has the quickness, the length, the defensive IQ, and versatility to really to be in the defensive position that he needs to be in to make these guys really have to go for some tough looks. So I think Wiggins, his defense is going to be really key to stopping them, because Draymond Green is probably going to get switched off sometimes. Wiggins is going to have to come over and help. You're also going to need to see a lot of great tough defensive plays from Steph Curry. He's really going to have to lock in, because I'm sure the Celtics are going to try and target him. Same with Jordan Poole. Those are two guys that I think the Celtics are going to try and get some switches on, go at them pretty quickly as soon as they step in on the court to try and get the Jays some pretty easy looks. So in that sense, they really have to lock in defensively 1 through 5. At all times, they got to avoid those switches being attacked. They've also really just need that team help defense to step up. Kevon Looney did a great job. Draymond Green. There's a lot of really smart defenders on this team. You've also got Klay Thompson, who I'm sure is going to get the matchup on Jaylen Brown from the get-go. You've got a lot of great defenders on this roster, so they're going to have a lot of tools to throw at these guys, but the way that they continue and relentlessly attack you, they've got to have different options ready, especially when they try to switch things up. And finally, one of the last things I want, also Gary Payton II. That's another guy that might be back for this series that I did not mention. Also a great defensive tool. But finally, I want to talk about my fifth thing. Will Steph Curry be Steph Curry? Now, I'm not one of the people that thinks, oh, Steph Curry can't play in the finals. I think that narrative is just completely wrong. I think he got robbed of a finals MVP in their first finals run. But all in all, Steph Curry has not really been the Steph Curry we've seen in the past over this playoff run. These Warriors have been a lot more team-oriented, and while Steph Curry has had some huge games, some great quarters, moments where he does take over, they're going to need Curry to be Curry to win this series. A lot of the other role players, I think, are going to have a hard time scoring as much on this phenomenal defense that I honestly think this Celtics defense is the best equipped in the league to handle the Warriors. I think they've got a great chance of making life difficult for them, or at least as much as any team does. So Curry's going to have some moments where he just steps up and is Steph Curry. He's got to shoot well. He's got to hit his free throws, which he's randomly started missing them every now and again. He's got to be the player they need to see. I'm sure they're going to throw doubles at him. I'm sure they're going to make his life difficult, be physical. Curry's going to have to play through that. And I believe he will. I believe he will step up in a big way. It's Steph Curry. He's one of the greatest to ever play the game. Probably the second best point guard of all time. And he's searching for that first finals MVP, another ring to add to his legacy. He's really trying to silence a lot of narratives in this series. And I think Curry's going to do it. I think he's really going to step up in a big way, put on and perform in a big way. With all that being said, I have to come down to my prediction. And this is one that's tough. I've bet against the Warriors a couple times. It hasn't really worked out, or really just necessarily. I bet against them going into the playoffs. I thought the Phoenix Suns were going to win the Western Conference, so not necessarily betting against them, but the Warriors have proved me wrong in that sense. And same with the Celtics. I thought they were going to lose in the second round to the Bucks in my initial prediction video. After I learned that Chris Middleton was out, I did pick the Celtics to win that series and the Heat series, and I've been really high on this Celtics team for a while. Heading into the playoffs, I told people they were capable of winning the championship. A lot of people did not agree with that. I picked them against the Milwaukee Bucks. I picked them against the Miami Heat. I think the Celtics team is really good, and I think a lot of people are doubting them unnecessarily. I think they've done a lot of things to prove how good they are. They haven't lost I think they've lost 2 games like 3 times since like mid-January. It's been ridiculous, or 2 games in a row, that is. They have been absolutely on fire, and I think they're a really tough team to take 4 games from. And so maybe against my better judgment, maybe picking against the Warriors is a bad call. I'm going to pick the Boston Celtics to win the NBA championship, raising banner 18 at the end of the series in 7 games. I think this one goes the distance. They just showed they could win on the road in Miami. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way, if the Warriors take this one in 6 or 7, but I do think this is a series that's going to go 6 or 7 games. And in this moment, right now, maybe I'll change my mind when the series gets closer. I'm going to pick the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum raising the Finals MVP trophy at the end of the season, finally silencing all the doubters that said that he couldn't do it, that him and Jaylen Brown couldn't play together, and beginning a really early legacy of a player that's probably going to go down the Hall of Fame someday, is going to continue to silence a lot of narratives and show a lot of people what he's made of. Though that is my ultimate take on the NBA Finals. I've got the Celtics winning in 7, Tatum Finals MVP. Like I said, I do think the Warriors could take this. I don't think there's any prediction you could make that's wrong. It's gonna be really fun. I'm really excited for it, but for right now, that's all I have to say about these finals. Let me know what your thought is on the finals in the comment section below. Who do you have winning the finals? Who's your finals MVP? Do you agree or disagree with any of the points I made in this video? I'd love to hear what y'all have to say, but for right now, that's all I've got to say. I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. Real